Welcome students to the class of history, that is of class 8. It is chapter number 2, from trade to territory. As the name of the chapter or the name of the chapter or the title is trade to territory, so first students we will understand what is the meaning of the title of this chapter or the heading of the chapter that is given. The heading is from trade to territory. So in this chapter students we will basically we are going to discuss about the Britishers or the British rule in India. And in this chapter, we will discuss mainly the things that how the Britishers, because initially, as we all know, and if you don't know it now, that initially the Britishers who came from the Great Britain, that is the present United Kingdom or England we call, came from the Britain to India as traders for the purpose of trading. Initially, their purpose was not to rule over the territories or the areas or the places of India. Their main motto was to trade in the initial stages, as we had seen from the different sources of history that is available of that time. So the trade, you all know what is trade, but what is the meaning of territory? The meaning of territory is area, a given area, a given place, that is called territory. So all these things we are going to discuss in the chapter. So first we will, before going deep further in the chapter or the different topics of this chapter, first we will discuss the mind map of the chapter and the introduction, you can call, of the chapter. That what are we going to study in this chapter? We are going to study in this chapter initially India before coming of the British, means how was our country India, what were the conditions of the people and the society that were living at that time before the British rule. That means total background of India that we will discuss in this lecture only, a complete background in detail. How did they came? So the Britishers came from Britain to India as from traders, and later on they transformed themselves as rulers. That's why here it is written how did they came. So they came, most obvious answer will be they came through the sea route only, because at that time airways were not in fashion. So initially they came from Britain as traders, and later on they became rulers over here. Further, in this chapter, we will discuss about the different battles, different wars that has been fought at that time. That is the famous Battle of Palasi. In great detail, we will discuss Battle of Buxar, Marathas' struggle with the Britishers, struggle or war of Tipu Sultan with the Britishers, and so on. All these things we will discuss in this chapter. After that, we will discuss the expansion of company rule. Company here means what you know about the company Airtel, Tata, Reliance Jio, all these companies we are not discussing here, or we are not talking about that company. The company, the British company that is naming English East India Company, in short we call it EEIC, the British company that came to India. So here we will discuss how the company, British company, ruled over India, what are the policies, different policies framed by the Britishers at that time, what is subsidiary alliances, claim to paramountcy, we will discuss doctrine of lapse, setting up of new administration, how they totally changed the old administration setup that was being followed during the Mughal period, because before the Britishers and after the coming of the Britishers also Mughal ruled for a longer period of time till 1857. And in this chapter we will discuss that what was the impact of the British rule on Indian society. So as a whole, all the things that we are going to discuss in this chapter, and this chapter is going to be interesting also, and from understanding point of view also, I had made the notes like that you will understand it in a simplest and easiest manner. So first, as I told you, that first we will discuss the first topic, that how was the India before the British. Means the complete background of India first we will see, so that we have a clear and better understanding of this chapter as we further progress. So this chapter that we are going to study in class 8, that is from trade to territory. So this chapter can be connected from the chapters that we all have seen, or you all have seen in class 7. So this chapter will act as a connecting link between class 7 history and class 8 history that we have seen in the chapters in class 7 also. And in history also we can relate different class topic, and for a better understanding we relate it can be connected to some topics of class 10 also, it can be connected to some topics of class 6 also. So this is the way how the study of history is carried on in a efficient manner. So in class 7th also we all have studied about medieval history, but in class 8 you are going to study about modern history, and modern history is not so boring as compared to medieval and ancient that you all have studied in class 7 and 6. So in class 8 history is going to be interesting for you. So in class 7 also we have studied about medieval history, and the topics related to the medieval histories like the Mughal period we have seen, Delhi Sultanate period we had seen, and so many chapters are there in class 7 also. Here again transition in history is happening. Here I have written, here again transition in history is happening. Transition means change. So from class 7 history to class 8 history, the history is changing from medieval history to modern history as we are going here. And modern history is also known as colonial period. The British period is also known as colonial period. That's why we call it as modern period also, or colonial period also. We have seen till last in class 7 that Mughals were representing or ruling India directly or indirectly. Why I have used the word directly or indirectly? Because at the time of Mughal Empire there were two only famous powerful Mughal rulers whom we know. One was Akbar the Great, that we all know, and the second was Aurangzeb. He was very cruel, but still he was a good administrator during his time, and he was considered as one of the most powerful person, most powerful emperor of the Mughal dynasty after Akbar. After Aurangzeb also, till 1857 several Mughal rulers ascended the throne and ruled during the Mughal period. Even the Britishers came to India, but they were not so efficient as Akbar and Aurangzeb were. So we also know that Aurangzeb was the last powerful ruler of the Mughal Empire. See the gentleman in the picture given here. He is Aurangzeb. Whatever has happened, or whatever the change has happened in history, it happened only after the death of Aurangzeb, the last renowned known powerful Mughal. Aurangzeb died in 1707, and many Mughal governors who were also called as Subedars. Subedars you also very well know, that we all have discussed it in class 7 also. So after the death of Aurangzeb, what had happened? Many Mughal governors whom the Mughal emperor had made governors of a particular province or a particular place or a particular area, they were only called as subedars. They started claiming their self independence, means they started revolting against the Mughal emperor, because all those Mughal emperor after Aurangzeb were not so efficient in ruling a vast empire that a Mughal dynasty was having at that time. So, taking the advantage of this, we all have discussed in class 7 also that many subedars or governors of Hyderabad, Awadh, Bengal have revolted, and they had declared themselves as independent rulers of that particular province, taking the advantage of the weaknesses of the Mughal period was facing after the death of Aurangzeb. Examples of such Subedars who declared themselves free from Mughal Empire were Murshid Quli Khan, governor of Bengal, Sadat Khan was there, Asaf Jahan, etc. And many governors, many Subedars were there who had declared themselves as independent rulers and declared their province or subas at their independent empire or independent kingdom. Not empire but kingdom. Mughal Empire was disintegrated into small province. All these things we are discussing about the background of India. All this thing has happened when Britishers had not came to India till this time. After this, on the death of Aurangzeb and due to the weaknesses of the Mughal emperor, Britishers got a chance to enter in India, and they had entered in India during the Mughal period only. So, several new independent rulers that we all have discussed established their regional kingdom or independent kingdoms, and the power of Delhi was declining day by day. Power of Delhi means Delhi was ruled over by Mughal till 1857. Directly or indirectly? Directly when they were in full flow, full power, and indirectly means when after the introduction of Britishers in our country, when they came to India, later on some of the Mughals accepted the authority of the British rule and they act as a puppet in the hands of the British. So the word directly and indirectly has been used over here. As a result, what had happened? New power started emerging in India, and that new power is known as the British. So I think up till here the background of India is cleared. So this was the introduction part of this chapter. Now we will see the first topic that is given in your NCERT book, that is East India Company comes east. And let me tell you students, in every video of mine we will discuss, or I will give the videos topic wise. That this video I had in this video I had covered the introduction part as well as the first topic of your NCERT book, chapter number 2, from trade to territory, that is East India Company comes east. This is the heading of the first topic of your NCERT. Before going deep into this topic, first we will understand here also what is the meaning of the topic given here. East India Company comes east. What is the meaning of this? So if you all will see the world map, Britain or England or United Kingdom lies in the western direction. If you see from India, where is Britain? That is in the western direction. Whereas if we talk about India, if we see the Indian map from Britain, if you see the India on the world map, India lies in the east. So, and the company that was coming to India from England or Britain for trade, the company name was East India Company. The complete name is English East India Company, EEIC. So, the name East India comes east is here. Comes east means comes to our country India and the subcontinent parts. So what is East India Company? First we will understand that it was basically a trading company. The complete name was English East India Company, in short we call it EEIC, which came to India to trade. To trade in what? To trade in spices and all those Indian products which have a great demand in Western countries worldwide, because at that time India was a good producer of spices, and the spices, basically spices of India, were famous in different parts of the world of that time, and people were fascinated to use Indian spices and love to eat Indian spices in food because this added flavors to the food of that time, or the people, and all the products like cotton fabrics, silk garments, silk threads, all these things are very much famous worldwide, and all the Indian products attained a or enjoy a great demand from different parts of the world at that time. So East India Company also comes to India to trade in all those certain things. And when English East India Company came to India in 1600, some dates you also have to learn in this chapter because that is most important from this chapter point of view. So in the year 1600, English East India Company acquired a charter from the Queen Elizabeth I. At that time, Queen Elizabeth I was the Queen of England, and to do the trade in India, the English East India Company acquired or received a a license to trade. So what is charter? We will understand that what is the meaning of charter, which has been received by English East India Company from Queen Elizabeth, that it gives the sole trading right to EEIC to trade in the East. In the East means in India and the parts of the subcontinent. It excluded competition from other English trading companies. What does this mean? How receiving charter from Queen Elizabeth I has eliminated competition from other English trading companies. Let me make you understand what has happened. In England, there is not English East India Company was a company who trades basically, and it is not so that there was a sole single company in England at that time who all are trading or who all are wanting to trade with the East, that is our country India. Among all those companies, English East India Company was selected or was picked up by Queen Elizabeth, and she gave them the license that you are the traders who are, or you are the company that are going to trade in East in India from England. Means no other English companies apart from English East India Company can go and trade with the countries in the East, particularly India, because we are talking about India. So this has happened. English East India Company has acquired a charter from the Queen Elizabeth. This has helped that this has eliminated the competition among the different companies, because that was the order passed by the Queen Elizabeth only. So this eliminated competition to an extent, but the problem doesn't end here. What has happened next? See, but Britain was not the sole company that was trading in India that we are talking about just now, but many other countries too were there. Not so in the same country, They had suppressed all other English companies and given license to English East India Company, that this is the only company that will represent, that will go in India and do the trade for Britain in the parts of East. But at that time, not only England, but there were many other countries were there who also wants to trade with Indian goods, because Indian products, as we all have seen or discussed, that they are enjoying a great demand worldwide in different parts of the countries. So other countries too were eager to trade with India, not only England, because there was a huge demand of the product, at that Indian product, in Western countries at that time. So who all are the other countries apart from England or the Britishers? So Denmark was also there who wants to trade with India. Portugal was also there. France was also there. Netherlands was also there, which are also giving competition to English East India Company. So a stiff competition was there between English East India companies and the companies, particularly of these other countries that are Denmark, Portugal, Netherlands, and France as well. Competition created a problem, but the nature of competition further exaggerated the problem furthermore. Exaggerated the problem means increase the problem. Already there was a stiff competition between the companies of the different countries, and this thing created a big problem to English East India Company. What has happened, that every country wants to trade in same country. To this extent it is acceptable, but if all the countries want to trade in a particular kind of product, just take for example cotton or spices. England also want to trade with in spices. Denmark people also, or traders also, want to trade with in spices and cotton. French people also wants. Portuguese also wants. So this has created demand of that particular product. Just for example, Parker pen. There are 4 Parker pen in a market. Let's suppose a situation, assume a situation that in a market there are only 4 Parker pen are available, but 40 purchasers are there. What will happen? There is a huge demand of Parker pen. All the buyers want that Parker pen. The number of buyers are more, but the product is less. What will happen? This will increase the price of the product. This will increase the price of the product, and those who will pay the product will be transferred to them. But earlier, when other countries were not there, English East India Company was making a huge profit out of the trade from India. Let's suppose earlier only one buyer was there, English people, so they are getting product like cotton. We talk about cotton, that they are purchasing cotton in 10 rupees, and from that cotton they are making cloth, or taking that cotton in their country and selling there, they are getting 17 rupees. So they are making profit of 7 rupees. But the other countries, when they entered India also to trade in with the same product, now the product is limited but the buyers are more. What will happen? The product that the English East India Company was purchasing at 10 rupees, selling at 7, making a profit of 7 rupees. Now the product price will go high. Now the product price has become 15 rupees due to the increase in number of buyers. And now even if the English East India Company is purchasing that product, so earlier they were getting at 10, now they are getting at 15, but they are selling that product. Let's suppose not, they will not sell at 17, they will increase the price there also. They will make it 18. So now they are also making profit, but the profit margin has reduced from 7 rupees. Earlier they were purchasing at 10, selling at 17, 7 rupees profit margin. Now the same product they are purchasing at 15, selling at 18. Even the price has been increased by them also. Profit margin is 3. So this was the thing that has exaggerated the problem furthermore. And I had tried to show you a map. This was the trade route that were followed by the different European countries, especially the Britain, to come to India for the trading purpose. Now, the nature of competition was such that every country wants to buy the same product of a particular kind, which decrease the their profit margin. Profit margin, how it has decreased, just an example we all have understood. All companies were interested in buying the same things, such as cotton, silk, pepper, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon, etc. These are the different types of spices and textiles. So India was a very huge and rich producer of textile and spices at that time. All these products are having a huge market in European countries. This thing also we all have discussed. So what was the solution available now for the English East India Company? Because due to the stiff competition, due to the rival competitors, the profit margin has reduced. Now they have to do something in order to maintain that profit margin, because this was tickling in their mind. So the ultimate solution they had tried to follow, that eliminating the rival competitors just like Denmark, Portugal, France, Netherlands. All these are rival competitors of English East India Company. So the only solution left in their hand at that time, seeing the stiff competition, that it is better to eliminate all these competitors from the market, and the only way through which trading companies can flourish, and only way English East India Company should flourish. This is the only way they had got, only option they had got in last, that is to eliminate all the rival competitors, because without eliminating it is not possible for the company to establish in India and make huge profits from the Indian products at that time. This led to fierce battle between the trading companies. Now all the trading companies started to to fight among themselves for the supremacy of the control over the raw materials of India, which was very much essential for trade at that time. In class 7 also you all have studied about Anglo-French war. The war was about the trading nations only. So what are the things started happening? Ships were attacked. It was being destroyed, plundered. Ships carrying raw materials from India, selling through the waterways, they were plundered in between by the pirates. Sea routes was the only medium to travel at that time, so routes were blocked. Trade was carried. Now the thing that has changed here, that in today's time we all know that trade happens with money. Money is the required to do any types of trade, but at that time trade was being done with the help of muscle power, and money power was needed, but muscle power or with the help of arms. And various trading posts were also made by the English people through the fortification. It is not so that, and fortification was initially done on the port areas, major ports of Bengal, Surat at time. Those were the major ports where big ships from other countries come and halt over there. So, seeing the condition of that time, English East India Company decided that we will establish different trading posts where all the raw materials will be stored, and that just like a warehouse they will make over there with fortified walls. means several forts were made as a warehouse, so that the products that is to be sended, or the products that has came from their country, the finished product, to sell off to the Indian people, that were kept safe, because the condition was not good between the trading countries, or between the rival competitors at that time. So the English East India Company started fortifications, but this also created a problem. Now the conflict with the local rulers has started, the conflict of English East India Company and with the local rulers of that area. Let's suppose in Bengal they had started fortification to save their trading posts. This we will understand again with an example, that let's suppose you are living in your house and I am a person from other place, and you are having a lot of property, lot of land area at your place, and suddenly I came from some other place or some other state or country, settled in your area, and for my own personal interest, without your permission, without taking your permission, if I start to build any house, or if I start building fort in your land property, in your area, then you have to fight with me. You will say. So this was the condition of the local rulers at that time, and this was the ultimate reason why now the conflict, when they started fortification, now why the conflict has been started with. The conflict was going on with the trading companies also, they are at war, continuous war, but the conflict after starting fortification of the trading posts, the conflict has started between the English East India Company and the local rulers of the particular area, because they were taking their land without their permission, and they were building their fort for their own personal trading interests. So I had tried to make you understand the fortification part more clearly through some images I had tried to share with you in the slides, how the fortification was being done at the time of Britain. So you can see how the forts were built, and these forts were declared as trading posts, where the things are stored or loaded in ships. So this was the end of part 1 of this chapter, from trade to territory. Hope you all have understood the first topic well. We will take up with the second topic in my second coming video. Stay tuned. Thank you.